sound like the old person. You don't say.
Yeah, I do. How are you, Jim? Fine. Good.
Oh, yeah, no. In 2 minutes, it would lock itself. It would go down to.
Oh. Okay, I'll call to order our town board work meeting or work session for April 12th, 2016. Can I have a motion purpose of today is to have the boards and committees present their draft work plans to the board, and in front of you is the agenda. I think we have seven presentations or seven discussion items. So I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. First up, Historic Preservation Commission Work Plan. Terry Settle.
Knock it over.
While Terry's getting ready, I'm just just an observation to everybody. This is and I know it's been a journey, but this is a big step forward for the town. We really have worked hard to get some accountability in the planning process at all the committee levels, and this is the first effort across the board where all the committees are responsible to build a work plan. So in advance, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to work this through. I know it's difficult work, but thank you for that. So.
I'd like to begin by reading the mission statement for the Historic Preservation Commission because that has a lot to do with the project that we chosen for our work plan. The Waxhaw Historic Preservation Commission serves to protect, preserve, and sustain its historic buildings, landmarks, and unique character. The Commission will be an advocate for Waxhaw's heritage by identifying historical structures, recommending historical designations, reviewing design changes, and assisting with preservation planning. In addition, the Commission will promote the appreciation of historic preservation and serve as an educational resource to enable the community to reap the benefits of preservation for future generations. And our first goal is the Facade Improvement Grant. This program was begun in 2010. The goal of the Facade Improvement Program is economic development through historic preservation, providing grants to encourage investment in repair and maintenance of downtown commercial buildings and residences built within the period of historic significance, which is 1888 through 1941. Upkeep of historical buildings are often more expensive to maintain because of their materials, and preserving the historical buildings helps to preserve our downtown's character. A workshop is held annually to educate the public about the grants. So the grant award fund is $50,000. The award is it's awarded twice during the year. That's $25,000 a piece in a revolving fund. And with the postcards that are sent out and everything for the workshop, that would bring us to $50,300 for that goal. The second one is, should I ask if there's any questions or anything, or just keep going? You'll interrupt me, I'm sure. Okay.
Terry, can you describe the postcards and who do they go to?
The postcards go to any property owners that are within the facade grant boundary. And
Whether they have a historical home or not?
they go, right.
Property.
Well, they go to all property owners.
Thank you.
The Oral History Project. I will say this project was inspired by the historic walking tour that former Commissioner Joyce Blythe does 2 a year. And she has one coming up. I'll put a plug in for her, April the 23rd at 10 o'clock. The Oral History Project is video recorded stories and information about the past that you get from talking to people about their experiences, families, the building uses, etc. This program began in 2015 as an intended to be an ongoing endeavor. Currently, a videographer is recording our histories at the meeting place. Right now, we have an educational specialist from the Charlotte Museum of History that comes to do the recordings for us. Basically, he's not charging us for doing it, but he did ask to be reimbursed for his trip out here, so that's $25 a trip for 4 trips, and so we're asking for $100 for that. Goal 3, the Rosenwald plaques. Our committee has actually, when we were researching the Rosenwald School in Waxhaw, we actually interviewed a former student of this school, Virginia Johnson, and got a lot of information from her about the actual location of the school. We would like to provide 1 or 2 historic plaques honoring the Rosenwald School and their impact on Waxhaw history. In 1912, Booker T. Washington approached philanthropist Julius Rosenwald about his concept to build rural schools needed for African American children across the segregated South. Waxhaw once had a Rosenwald school that stood on 2.25 acres and was located on Curidan Road off of Howie Mine Road. The town of Waxhaw contributed $1,785 towards the school, along with the black community and Rosenwald, who contributed $900 each. In 1954, the Supreme Court issued the decision to integrate public schools, leaving the Rosenwald schools abandoned. Most of these schools have since been torn down, and those that exist are rare. So we estimated the cost of the plaques to be $1,000 apiece, based on the one that was recently purchased for the Duncan McDonald House, so that would be $2,000. And our last goal is an article, a monthly article in the Village News. We'd like to publish articles in the Village News sharing current preservation projects and other key information to help bring community awareness to the activities and responsibilities of the Historic Preservation Commission. Now, in addition to our goals, we have, I guess, normal business items, which the whole purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission is there's a state statute that requires us to consider certificates of appropriateness for landmarks that are in our historic district. Owners of local landmarks are required to obtain a certificate of appropriateness before making significant changes or additions, beginning new construction or demolishing or relocating a property. The Commission's review of proposed changes ensures that work on a designated landmark is appropriate to the special character of the landmark. And for that, I think we had estimated to be $1,500. That would be for attorney's fees, and also the mailing of the notices that are required for the hearing for the certificate of appropriateness. Training is our second item of need for training, to ensure that the commission members are educated on quasi-judicial process that are required for the certificate of appropriateness, and additional training is available, and that was $900 for a total of $54,000.
Any questions? Okay. Next up, Design and Appearance Committee Work Plan presentation. Again, Terry Settle.
So I'd have to say this work plan is a collaboration between the town manager, the Main Street manager, our board of commissioner liaison, and our committee. As you know, this committee was created by combining two committees, so we actually had taken their projects from those two. So it's a little more involved. The first goal one was to update the facade grant administration program. Goal two is to recommend development of an overall public right-of-way enhancement plan. The idea for this, and you'll notice there's no amount next to this, we see the need for I'll call it a master plan that has all of the right-of-way things like sidewalks, crosswalks, wayfinding, benches, banners, any things like that that appear in the public right-of-way. And I think in the form of a map would be helpful, where you could layer it and put different things in different layers. So that way you could have one map that had everything on it, or if you just needed to know where all the crosswalks were in town, you could just print that layer of the map out. But that would require staff, so we can't, really ask for a specific number there. I guess that's up to y'all to decide on that, but we see that as a goal, as something that we need, the town needs. Goal three is to improve the aesthetics of the public right-of-way through plantings, art, banners, benches, etc. This is basically the ongoing projects that the beautification has been doing for a number of years, approved by this board and previous boards. Benches, $5,000, and this should end the phase of the downtown Main Street benches that we began working on several years back. Banners, $3,500 for some replacement banners, $100 for ribbon for the wreaths at Christmas, and we started a project actually when Commissioner Fitzgerald was chairman of beautification, to plant azaleas and daffodil bulbs along the art walk, with the idea that in the future we may have some type of flower festival or something, but in the meantime it would beautify that area, and then in between the plantings there would be art, art along that walk. So that's $9,621. Goal four.
May I interrupt you?
Sure.
We had some new benches put out on Main Street, and in Old Town Hall, there's the old benches that need to be reallocated through the town. So could you have the design committee decide where they want to reallocate those? Because, I mean, they're just sitting inside the Old Town Hall. I hate
Really?
I hate to see them just sitting inside the Old Town Hall.
Well, we had told Todd or the Public Works people and the event people that they could use them in what I call the event lot, vacant lot on the corner. I mean, that's where I could, because they're easily moved around because they're small and they light, and they can be moved out of the way, unlike the larger, more substantial ones that we bought for Main Street. So I think that would be an appropriate use for them. Okay. So goal four is to enhance the downtown environment through the development of public gathering spaces. The group would look for possible locations, identify the cost for developing a gathering space, and make a recommendation to the commissioners. One of the places we'll probably look at is the alley by the Niven Price building, that would provide a walk between Main Street and public parking, and could also maybe be used for some events, and we're asking $5,000 for that. Goal five.
Just a point of clarity, you're coming back to the board with a recommendation on gathering places, and your estimate is that to get one going, or at least this one, is approximately $5,000. Okay.
So, and if it's more, of course, we would be making a presentation. We've got to decide first, so
Yeah,
that was
okay.
the idea. Goal 5, as requested by staff, provide input during the TAP grant implementation process. The old design committee had already begun work on new light fixtures for Main Street, and then when we found out about this grant and what was going to be done with the sidewalks and the streetscape, it was determined that we needed to hold off on the street lights and install them at the appropriate time. But in the meantime, that project needs to be completed, but anything that the staff needs help with as far as the design aspect of the streetscapes, that's what that goal 5 is for. Goal 6 is to provide landscaping around the new monument gateway signs. Money for several years, the beautification committee put money in the budget for landscaping around the gateways into town, but nothing ever, wayfinding never, that portion of it hadn't been built yet, but it's scheduled to be built this year, so that money will go for that, and that's to actually purchase the plants. We would ask Public Services to actually put the plants in the ground, but we'll come up with the plan. So the $4,500 is for the plants for 3 of the gateways.
With the gateway signs, Terry, are they relocating them, or are they just replacing where they currently sit, or?
There's no gateway signs coming into town. This will be at Bonds Grove.
The one at the Howey property is not considered a gateway?
That's a downtown gateway.
Okay.
And this is the city limit gateway.
Water signs.
We are going to do the downtown ones also.
Everybody's pointing fingers. Go ahead, sir.
It's part of the wayfinding.
Right, but I mean, so the current Howey property monument sign that sits there, that's not part of the
That's going to
wayfinding?
be converted into the downtown monument. Welcome to the downtown of Waxhaw.
Okay.
And then you're going to have gateways at, turn on the speaker so Nick won't yell at me. And the gateways are Highway 16 up by Bonds Grove Church Road,
Right.
Highway 75 on both ends, basically. There will be one on Howie Mine Road, but not in this phase.
Okay.
So there is 3 going in this year.
And we have conceptuals of what those look like at Town Hall. They look pretty good. If you'd like to come by and take a look.
Okay, but just the one that currently sits there, that's just going to be repurposed, converted to the Welcome to Downtown?
Yeah, it's going to be repurposed. It's going to be a little tweaked, redesigned so it matches our overall look of our other gateways. So it will look similar, but it won't look exact because it's older.
Okay.
And it has solid brick.
Okay, thank you.
The ones at the city limits will be tall, not the lower con like on the
Howey property.
property.
So,
More along the lines of what they have in Weddington, those tall ones they have in Weddington. Except they don't look like theirs, but I'm just saying.
before we place the one at Bonds Grove, will we cross-check that with the conceptual design that we're working on Marvin with as to what that road will ultimately look like?
And make sure it's movable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I should place it in the turn lane. So I get hit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Educational opportunities, I couldn't remember where it was.
Sorry.
So this is from time to time, there are opportunities that would benefit the Committee for Education, so we put $200 in for that, which would bring this to a total of $19,321.
Any questions?
I have a question really directed to the board because I don't understand why the design committee is dabbling in something that is historic preservation, this facade grant. And the facade grant was designed to maintain and uphold the historical properties of town, in the town. And I don't understand why we have 2 different committees doing the same thing.
So,
Because it's always been under historic preservation. It has never been under design committee.
Kurt? Yeah, you're allowed, yeah. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Hi, Kurt White. Yes, so that's actually why the work plan item is worded the way it is. So the Historic Preservation Commission has always had the facade grant, but we know also that the Economic Restructuring Committee is going to be working on a comprehensive, researching a comprehensive incentive plan for businesses. One of their recommendations could be, or it could include a facade grant program. A lot of towns use their facade grants really targeted more towards economic development and not historic preservation. Doesn't mean that we would be taking ours away from historic preservation as a focus, but it needs to be part of that larger discussion. So the design committees, the way it's worded is not to remove it, it's just to let's talk about it with the understanding that the ERC is going to be working on something too. So we want to make sure that we're all having that conversation to see how it best fits.
So it's on 3 committees then?
Yeah. That's
So,
what
yeah.
It's still going to be administered by the Historic Preservation Committee this year. We're not trying to have 3 committees all have their hands in it as far as how it's administered and how the funds are actually utilized or how they're approved even. We just want the 3 committees to have the discussion.
Other questions? Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Mr. Fisher. Economic Restructuring Committee.
Mayor Maher, members of the Board of Commissioners, Manager Wood, thank you for this opportunity to be before you today to talk about the goals for 2016-17 on the ERC committee. Last year, there were 18 goals. A little bit on the unmanageable side, as was pointed out. We've narrowed that down this year to 4, to be much more manageable, much more have much more workability by the committee, and we've taken and listed those with a champion, giving you some financial resource needs we might have, and then what they call the milestones, the things we need to work with. Our first goal as we look at this for this next year is to present downtown economic development issues and recommend actions to the Board of Commissioners based on the research and town visits that committee members make. Now, we thank you so much for the vision and the mission work that y'all have done so far. And we look more to you to get more of that to help us get to the end result. So thank you for what you've done. The big thing in this is we're going to select 5 markets that are proven markets. I also want to take this time to thank y'all, those that have been to a Main Street conference and seen some of the towns we've been in, whether it's Newbern, whether it's Morganton, whether it's Goldsboro, or whatever. But we have selected Mr. Cook to head up this workforce and go to pick 5 markets and then narrow it down to 2 and visit and work with their Main Street people, their planners, etc. What did they do right? What did they do wrong? Come back. We'll have a program assessed up and present to each of you for decision making as we go forward on the economic development there. Number 2, based on findings of goal number 1, in the Board of Commissioners and Town Vision for Economic Development, we'll recommend a vision for business development for current and future business as it pertains to the boundaries of Main Street. And we've given you some items we'll work with there. Number 3 is discussing what was just discussed by Kurt, but to research and develop and recommend a business incentive plan for new and existing businesses for the Board of Commissioners to consider. This could be things like revolving loans, tax incentives, facade grants, assistance in securing grants. And we feel like, based on things we found in visits and working with other town Main Street programs, planners, etc., we found that when a business owner or a company comes in, they want to work with one person. They don't have to go from person to person to person to person to get things done. So that's why we all need to know what it's about and how we can work it and how we can best guide them in the best way. So that's what we're looking at. Number 4, the ERC will develop 3 infrastructure-related recommendations to the Board of Commissioners. Looking at the current state of downtown and looking at the impact that the current state has on economic development. And then we'll prioritize concerns, and based upon the criteria, the ERC will establish and working with the town planners, etc. If you skip over to page 5, on page 5 you'll see that in goal number 1, that's going to take a budget of $716. Mileage, coordinate, do the lunches, etc. There's no financial burden. Number 2, goal 2, or goal 3. So with that, lost a page. Right here. Excuse me. Page 6 of 6. The Economic Development Conferences, that'll be a budget of $1,500. We attended the International Conference of Shopping Centers in Charlotte this year and found out a lot about what will be helpful. It's been communicated through an input session to Manager Wood on this, and so there'll be some things that y'all will be hearing about that. And then our business improvement seminars, we're asking for a budget of $3,000. We have the opportunity to bring in John Formica. He's a Disney former management person to provide education and training for the businesses of downtown. Whatever aspect that we feel of discussing with him, with some of the business owners, they feel would be beneficial. This is an estimated cost of $3,000. Last year, our total budget was $16,000, which included the recruitment, brochure development, and the printing. This year, the 5216 is a 67% reduction from our 2016 budget. So we hope that you approve that amount for the ERC committee. I'll be more than happy at this time to entertain any questions or any comments that you have on the ERC budget and the work plan.
I got 2 questions or comments. One, should we approve the plan on, as you're going out and working with other towns, I think it would be important to glean any legislative actions or priorities those towns are taking as well. An example is MSD districts have become very hot at the legislature this year, and towns that were interested in that had to get the League of Municipalities to go to bat for them. There's other things like that that could pop up. I'd be curious as to, or we would all be curious as to how that, where they focus with their legislatures on that. Second thing is, and maybe this is more towards Kurt, I think it'd be important to understand how this integrates I guess it's number 1 and number 2, as you make these recommendations. How does this integrate into the Buxton work? So these things are integrated in unison and not at odds with each other.
That's very doable, very doable. Okay.
Other questions? Okay, you can sit down and then come back up and do the,
The Organization Advisory Committee Work Plan. I'm very happy today. Dave, stand up. Dave Koziak, he's on our OAC. Terry Settle is on our OAC.
Terry Haynes.
Terry Haynes back there is on our, well, he snuck in. And so really appreciate them being here. We have, in this plan here, we've got 4 goals, again, manageable, things we think we can accomplish. Goal number 1 is to facilitate ongoing relationships and partnerships with both internal and external stakeholders, such as the WBA, Waxhaw Business Association, Waxhaw Entrepreneurs, Monroe Union EDC, Waxhaw HOAs, downtown residents, and the Union County Chamber of Commerce. We've asked Dave Koziak to champion this and to be the leader in this. We've given you 3 things on milestones and a couple of anticipated obstacles there that you can read. Number 2 is to create and implement a volunteer recruitment system. I will take that one along with working with the committee. Identification of volunteer needs, and I must say this at this time. I'd like to give a big shout to Melody Schuler and Kathy Queen for the hard work that they've done. Right now we have, I believe it's 27 positions with the expiration date, our term expiration is June 26th that we're working on. I was visiting with Michael Kramer just a minute ago about an alternate on the planning board. We've got a couple applications there. So we do appreciate the hard work that they've done. We want to have an official recruitment plan. We're waiting for Lisa to get back to see how we pull in the events aspect of it, et cetera. And the main problem we're going to have in this, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is how do we predict committee vacancies? That's going to be the hard thing to have it. We hope to have built up 125 applications that'll be on file that we can go to pick from instead of having to wait. There's a lot of things out there, such as visiting with HOAs. There's some marketing things that we're talked to Melody about, like Union County Weekly. Of course, we've got our social media, et cetera, as well as the other thing is having people refer. And I know I met today with a gentleman that was referred to me by one of our committee members to talk to him. And so very interested. We'll see if the application comes through, but that's where we're at on that. And then the volunteer appreciation event on number 3. This is a $2,500 expenditure. We've already met with Manager Wood, Lisa Hoffman, before she went out, got some ideas and things. We do have an established location. We're not ready to announce that. The date, we need to lay that down, work on some logistics and things. But some of the things we're talking about is recognition. Again, Terry Settle gave some good ideas at our recent OAC meeting. Letter to the volunteers, possibly recognize them in the village news, and then a certificate of appreciation. Just a few things there, so we're working on that. There'll be more to come, as they say. And then the last but not thing, utilizing the entire team of the OAC committee, looking at each one of the committees that we've talked about so far today, that we work with that chairperson to make sure that we're operating in accordance with their board-approved work plans, and that we review quarterly the reports that Mr. White will work on based on our workload and the progress we've made. And last but not least is to keep committees accountable for changing priorities, because we know this is going to be a moving target. That's the way economic development is. And so with that, I thank you for your time. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on the OAC. If you've got something that's popped into your mind about the Economic Restructuring Committee.
Any questions? Thanks, Don. I don't see, are you going to do promotions, Kurt? switch it up for now. Since Mr. Spellings is here, we'll bring him to the front. Parks, Culture, and Recreation. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me tonight. My first opportunity to address the board formally. I'm Tony Spellings, the chairman of the Parks and Rec Board, and the goal is to keep you on track on your timeline. So we've got 5 or 6 major initiatives that we will give you a quick update on, give you an idea of what we're doing at the Parks and Rec Board now that might be a little different than previously. But first, I'd like to say my commitment to the board is I would like to meet with each and every one of you at some point over the next 2 to 3 weeks individually. There's a lot of detail that could go into the conversation tonight, and I know we don't have time for that, and we don't want to make time for it tonight. So what I'd like to do is make myself available over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and hopefully I can sit down with each of you and get a better feel for your perspective on the Parks and Rec. And I'd also like to publicly thank our 2 commissioners who are kind enough to join us at virtually all the meetings, our liaisons. Thank you very much, and look forward to having you at the next meeting. One of the things that we've done differently is we came up with our work program, or should I say our list, our work plan, and in the past I felt that it's been very disjointed as far as how we try to advance the initiatives. So the first thing was to prioritize the work that needs to be done. The second thing was we have chosen the voluntold themselves, but the volunteer on the Parks and Rec has volunteered, one person has volunteered to be the lead for each of the initiatives. So we have someone who can work a bit more accountably on these initiatives and actually get some advancement. And I'd like to also thank the town for having Natalie Jackson as our director of Parks and Rec, because I think the initiatives are moving at light speed compared to what they have in the past, and I think that's due to the hard work of the board, but also particularly Natalie Jackson. So thank you for doing that and creating the department officially. The first initiative is the one that I took on myself, and that is trying to determine what is the best fit for the finishing of Nesbitt Park. We've just received some updated FEMA maps, and they are worse. So the majority of that park is in not just the floodway, not the floodplain, but they're in the floodway, which is the worst designation you can have if you wanted to do any future development of really any sort there. So we're very limited with what we can do. There is still a need for more permanent bathrooms and some other maintenance items. The future of that park, though, is very dependent upon the future of the town acquiring other properties and delivering other athletic fields to ease the demand. As I'm sure you've heard, the park is overflowing with athletes and with parking, and that's not going to be alleviated as the town continues to grow at the fast pace that it does without the town developing more athletic fields. This town does not have one full-size soccer field, multi-use field, football field, basically the same size. We don't have one. Now, there's one at Nesbitt, at Kensington, which is probably the school, but I do want to impress upon you the need that one of the biggest priorities for Parks and Rec is going to be future development of athletic fields, in addition to the recreational needs, the passive recreation and whatnot. But that's one of our most pressing needs. And as far as Nesbitt is concerned, before we can alleviate the demand down there, that's going to restrict what we can do. If we had another athletic field that we were opening up, then I could see taking some of the smaller fields and making them parking or making some permanent fixtures down there. But until we have an ability to relieve the capacity, then we're probably stuck for now. But we're looking at more upscale bathrooms. A few years back I went to a wedding and they had really upscale bathrooms. We don't know what the cost is, if that makes sense yet, but we're looking into that as opposed to just straight porta-johns. So there's a lot going in, but we're very limited by the floodway and capacity. So that's where we are with Nesbitt. Any questions on Nesbitt? All right. The second goal is the 34 acres on Waxhaw Marvin Road. We're a split board, quite frankly. There's not yet any real agreement. The conversations are very preliminary, but as far as the board's concerned, we haven't really come up with a good idea of what to do with that property yet. I know that there are communications going on in the background as far as what's going to happen with that piece of property from the town side, but from the board side, there's advocates for keeping in total or disposing in total and everything in between. So we're awaiting information from the board before we begin some work to try to figure out how to best utilize that property or recommend, an alternative. Third is Town Creek Park. Justin Newton, one of our board members, who is a member of WAA, has been very integral in working with Natalie to really get an idea of how to finish out Town Creek Park. We want to get the electrical cable buried or at least out of the way and get that property usable, probably more for athletics. And I think with some smart scheduling, you can utilize that field more than it's being utilized now. Number 4 is the Downtown Initiative. So as you know, you were all forced to endure some sticker shock as we initially presented a first rough draft of the design of the Horton property of the downtown park. Now that we have a little bit more guidance as far as what or the timelines might look like, and as far as what funding for the property could be, I think we've got it kind of narrowed down to where we can make it usable, get the property out, make it available for not only just day-to-day recreation, but also make it available for the events. It's a great spot to have some of the town events. They can use that for some of their overflow parking and additional infrastructure like electricity and water and whatnot. And some of the actual festivals or future festivals could actually be held down there as well. Goal number 5 is to champion the connectivity. As you know, we have a number of different plans, from the pedestrian plan to the Carolina Thread Trail to trails within certain subdivisions all through. We've got a champion, which is Brendan Schaefer on our board, and he is big into trail masters and biking, and he is at this point really focusing on trying to figure out how we can get all the trails that we have connected, how to start discussions with blue ways, which going down a river as opposed to a greenway on land. So we have, hopefully, with the opening of the bridge at Walnut Creek and the Mill Bridge connection, that'll be a nice start for a cross-state connection, which will then hopefully continue at least all the way through up to Providence Road, and we'll figure out how to get it across Providence Road in the best way. Goal number 6, so I put 6 on here because this one's pretty much done. We are, the 2 members of our board who are members of the art committee, we have streamlined the art plan and policy. There will be basically no competing documents or initiatives, so that's at town council for final review, I believe. Natalie, that? Yep. So it's with the attorney. That should be pretty much done because the majority of the work is already done. So just wrapping up a few loose ends with it, and then we'll have one artist of the month with some additional exposure and whatnot. And then we've clarified that for future buildings moving forward that are owned by the town, then 0.5% of the budget for that building should be allocated for art. And that's our 6 initiatives. I'll try to stay at 10 minutes if I did all right.
Great. Any questions?
Any questions? Wow, we should have sleep that fast.
Nah.
All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, Promotions Committee, Jane Hunt.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Listen, I want to thank all our commissioners and our mayor and our town manager for being supportive of the Main Street program and knowing how important it is to keep our Main Street alive. So we've come up, the Promotions Committee has come up with 6 goals that we want to try to implement next year. The first goal, which we feel is very important, is social media training. The wave of the future is to advertise through social media so it saves the businesses money. And the problem we have is most of our businesses are run by older people that aren't familiar or can easily learn the social media. So we feel like the training is something that we need to keep moving forward. We did have 2 training sessions or two opportunities for them to train this year, and we were very pleased with the longtime businesses that came out to learn, and we really feel like they want to learn more. And so what we're asking is some financial needs would be $600, and what we would be doing is figuring out what additional training they want and providing the training that way. The second goal is to implement Part 2 of the Downtown Business app. This year, we had extra money in our budget, so we agreed to apply it to create an app for the walking tour so that people can use their cell phone and go by the historical sites, and it pulls up a picture of that historical site and gives information about that historical site. But the second phase of that is to bring in the businesses into that app. So what we want to do is kick off the walking tour, which I think it's going to be finished in May or June, and then give it some time to work out the kinks. And then we want to implement the same type of plan for the businesses as people walk down the streets, that it would pop up on their phone, and that the business could have a special for that day, and it could be thing that changes all the time, so that our town is now interacting with the people on their cell phones, because that's the wave of the future. So our financial need for that, we feel, is $10,000. Our third goal would be to increase our exposure with Visit Charlotte. And this is a website called Charlotte's Got a Lot. And it's where most tourists in Charlotte go to find out what's going on or where to go visit when they come to visit. Now, what we found out this year is that for the town to get on it, it was free. So Kurt's been working on getting our town on that website. But where we want to carry it next year is we want to try to get 5 of the top businesses at least to agree to go on and for them to pay to get on there, so that we start having a presence as the town and businesses on why people should come visit our town. And that's no cost. That's just something that we're trying to do as a group. Our fourth goal is to do a film on each business, a video that can be used on the town's website and also in social media for that business. And what we would be using is the IT staff. We've started with Stewart's. We haven't finished that one, but we're trying to get that one tweaked, and then it's going to be which business is asked to be on it will go from business to business and create the video. So now they've got something professionally done that they can post on all the different social medias that we're learning. Our fifth is promoting the open air market, which we basically run that from the Saturday after the Kaleidoscope show to the Saturday before Autumn Treasures. And that's to get local artists to come out and demonstrate and sell their goods. We did it last year, and we plan to kick it off again this year and try to have an area where people will come out and see these people out on the street. I mean, I think it went over really well last year, and I think all we can do is improve off of what we started. And again, that's not a cost, but we just want you to know how we're trying to market this town as a town where the arts are. And then number 5 is we will plan and execute our first Fridays, and we've estimated our need to be $12,000 for that. And we want to keep the first Fridays moving forward. We feel like people are watching for them. Sometimes we have good ones, sometimes we don't have such good ones, or we don't have the turnout. But a lot of it can have to do with weather and timing and all that kind of stuff. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, good.
Thanks, Jane. Planning Board, Mr. Morgan.
Good evening, all. I'm Michael Kramer from the Planning Board, and we've developed a work plan together with staff and our Planning Board liaisons, Fred, Jim, and we have 3 goals for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. Our first goal is to ensure that each Planning Board member receives the proper orientation and training. We do have a training session budgeted for the amount of, I think, $900. That sounds right. And currently, the Planning Board members receive one-on-one training given by the staff prior to serving, and we all receive a orientation manual as well. Our second goal is to continue in the participation, or still participate or continue participating in the development of the new UDO and review draft. Once the UDO is adopted by the town board, the members will also receive further training on the new UDO. Our third goal is to continue to be involved in the comprehensive plan. Review drafts of the comprehensive plan, provide feedback, and once that plan is adopted by the town board, receive further training on the new comp plan. And then obviously this is in addition to our normal monthly meetings, and we do anticipate larger agenda items due to the continued growth of Waxhaw. Any questions?
Michael, are you looking for additional training beyond the orientation? Is that what you're getting at here?
Yeah, well, we've had, as you know, Fred, Jim, yourself, and then we have, several new members. And so, yeah, and then we did have that new, I forgot what we called it, but we did have some training subsequent to that. And then, well, obviously, once we have the new DO and comp plan, obviously, our train of thought has to change, so someone has to train us.
Yeah.
We don't have any formal training. And then some of us are so new, it's imperative where they get the training. Does that answer
Yeah.
your question?
Yeah, it does. Because I think some of us can perhaps put a bug in the ear of the league and the School of Government to say, hey, we're making these shifts. What can you do to help us? That's why I was asking the question, because I think you're looking for more than just the orientation. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
No, I just wanted to clarify for my own self. Thank you.
Looks like we're on time.
Other questions? Okay. That's it. I'll entertain a motion. Go ahead, Jim.
John.
John.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the presenters this evening and all of the members of the committees and the boards. This whole board is made up of everyone that's come up through the board system here in town. That's how we all got our start. And again, it shows a true commitment and dedication to Waxhaw, and I do really appreciate it. Thank you.
Other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the work session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.